This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. This is Rob Dennert, the Vice Chair of the Iowa 911 Council. Chair Rotter is out of the area today.
I think you can continue, Mr. Vice Chair. Rob, you still there?
I'm here. Who's that?
He's trying to talk.
Hello?
Rob, why don't you try to?
Hi, can you guys hear me? I'm getting a bad echo and feedback.
Now talk, Rob.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. I muted somebody that was on.
Okay. All right. Well, let's try it again. Good morning. This is Rob Dennert. I'm the Vice Chair of the Iowa 911 Council. Chair Rotter is out of the area today and asked me to chair the meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order. If we do a roll call of the members, please, Madam Secretary.
Just talk. Okay, Jason Hoffman.
Here.
Lawrence Hartpence.
Here.
Chair Rogers absent. George Griffith.
Here.
Mike Bryant. Mark Murphy.
Mark's here.
Jeff Anderson.
Here.
Richard Pierce.
Captain Pierce is here.
Okay, Rob Dennert is on. Jack D'Angelo.
Here.
Taylor Teefel. We have a quorum. We do have a quorum, Vice Chair.
Very good. Thank you. The next item is guest introductions. I don't think we'll go through everyone that's online, but do we have any guests joining us, potentially from industry or making any presentations today? Okay, hearing none. I'd entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
Mark Murphy, so moved.
Motion by Murphy, second by Anderson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries. How about an approval of the December 9th minutes?
Griffith, so move.
Is there a second?
Mark, I'll second.
Motion and a second for the approval of December 9th minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Being January, we have the annual election of council officers. At the last meeting, Chair Rotter did seek additional interest and put that bug out there in people's ear. So I believe we'll need to go through the chair, vice chair, and secretary. If I remember correctly, all the current officers in those seats would agree to do it again, unless there was other interest by other parties. So let's open the nominations for chair to the floor.
I nominate Chair Rodder.
Is there a second for Chair Rodder?
Hoffman will second.
Okay, we have a motion for Rob Rodder as chair. Any other nominations for chair? I entertain a motion to cease nominations for chair.
Anderson.
So moved.
Nominations for chair are closed. If you don't mind, if we only have one, since it's only one, we'll vote on this. All in favor of Chair Rodder being reelected as chair? Say
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Our chair for 2022 will be Rob Rodder again. Let's open the nominations for vice chair.
Hoffman will motion, Rob Denner.
Is there a second?
Mark will second.
Thank you for that. Any other nominations for vice chair?
Hoffman will move that nomination cease and the unanimous ballot be cast.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Anderson.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? I'll abstain from that vote. For secretary, I'd open the nominations to the floor.
Hoffman will move. Kara Searles.
Is there a
Mark will
second?
second.
Any other nominations?
Hoffman will move nomination cease and the unanimous ballot be cast.
Is there a second?
Second, Lawrence Hartnett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Your slate of officers for the council for 2022 will be Rob Rodder as chair, Rob Dennert for vice chair, and Kara Sorrells as secretary. Item number 6, the State of Iowa Administrator Report. Mr. DeRoshi.
Thank you, newly elected Vice Chair Denner.
Thank you.
A number of things to get to today. If you have been around for a while, you are aware that on an annual basis, the FCC submits a report to Congress after doing basically a survey of all of the states to determine who has diverted 911 fees. We remain diversion free. We are not on the naughty list again this year. There's a lot of other data that is also part of that report, call counts, expenditures, a lot of information that is part of the data collection that we do within the state that gets submitted up to the federal level. So there's a lot of other good things in that report, but really just wanted to make everyone aware that we do remain diversion free, which makes us and keeps us eligible for any 911 grants that exist now or could be coming down in the near future. This is an agenda item for later on, as well as it's part of the information sharing amongst 911 council members. But I do want to bring everyone's attention to Public Safety Docket 21479 from the FCC. That is a proceeding that stems from NASNA's request for rulemaking. NASNA is the association of my peers in all the 50 states. And that petition seeks to do a couple things. It would make a ruling on all carrier cost recovery. It would provide a ruling on where the DMARC is on NextGen 911 as far as who's responsible for what. And it asks for a NG 911 readiness registry, where the 911 authorities could tell carriers, at what step along the way of NextGen 911 are we ready? And then there would be a deadline for the carriers to meet that progression, similar to text to 911. We are submitting formal comments along with a handful of other states. I know of about 5 that are already doing so. The deadline for those comments close 6 days from now. So there could be others that submit those comments. PSAPs, carriers, industry are all eligible to submit formal comments to the FCC for that proceeding. There will also then be a period of reply comments. So again, next week on the 19th, those comments are due, and then that opens up a period where you can reply to the comments that were submitted. So if anyone is interested, kind of those two windows for you to submit comments on. Any questions on those two things before I move on? Okay. There's no real update on the wireline migration. You'll see on the map on the next slide that the majority of the state is fully connected. There are 5 PSAPs that are only partially connected. Those 5 have direct trunks and really are directly tied back to that FCC proceeding that I just mentioned. I probably should have, those numbers for the forms, I forgot to update as of yesterday, so I think we received a couple of them yesterday, but for the most part, you can see what is still outstanding. There's around 13 PSAPs that still need to submit expenditure collection forms. As a reminder, the legal deadline for that is in March, and then we have to withhold surcharge if we don't receive them by then. And 16 service board membership forms are still outstanding as well. One thing that I haven't overly kept folks up to date on, it's kind of been a 5-year project or so, is connecting EZNets with other states. So this is specifically, we started with Minnesota. I do suspect Nebraska will follow shortly after that, but that would basically link 911 systems. So for those counties and PSAPs along the borders, you'd be able to seamlessly transfer 911 calls just like you do within the state today. So you'd be able to program a star code, and instead of sending that to like a 10-digit number where you lose Annie Alley, you would be able to maintain that Annie Alley information. So we've been working with the National 911 Office, our surrounding states, vendor community, and we're finally to the point where we're close within months of being able to kind of turn that up. Again, first with Minnesota, and then soon after that, hoping with Nebraska. So that will be a big benefit to those border counties. And I'll keep everyone up to date on where we're at when that actually happens.
Blake?
Yep.
On that, are those states with the same EZNet vendor, or they're different?
So no, and that's why this is so unique. A couple of years ago, Minnesota and North Dakota did this, but they have the same EZNet providers. Minnesota and Iowa do not. Nebraska and Iowa do not. That's why it's a little bit more of a technological leap to make that connectivity. I think the end state of NextGen 911 is for all counties to be connected to all counties in every state. That is not where we're quite at yet. This would just mostly be the border counties.
Is there any bordering counties that use the same EZNet vendor?
No, because Minnesota has a statewide vendor, and it would be different than our statewide vendor. And same with Nebraska is still building theirs out, but it's also a different statewide vendor.
Not so lucky. Thank you.
We did file our annual legislative report that is due to the General Assembly on the 15th, so we got that in a little bit sooner. That's available on our website if you're curious. I have not sent that out. If there's a big desire for me to send it out, I will, but again, it's on our website, and you're able to go grab that as you desire. Last one on this slide. Our management and administration fee for managing the 911 program has been at $250,000 since 2013. Prior to that, it was at $200,000. This last year, we actually went over that $250,000. So we worked with the governor's office, and if you noticed her budget presentation, if you dove into that document, you would have noticed her recommendation is to increase that to $300,000. So that is just basically an extra $500,000 for us to manage the program. That goes to our salaries and benefits, but it also goes to the state auditor to do the various audit activities, the Attorney General representation for 911 comes out of that, and various other things for just managing of the program. So it's not
a general fund.
What's that?
That's a state general.
No,
fund.
that would be, so every the first quarter of every fiscal year, we take that amount out of the surcharge revenue to run the program for the year.
So that's an annual amount or that's a quarterly?
Annual amount, 300,000. We had to use our general fund appropriation to cover our overage last year. One other item, again, from the budget, the governor's budget presentation and her budget that she works with on Department of Management every year. This slide has been appearing within the budget for the last couple of years, and I wanted to bring your attention to it. It's something that we've kind of talked about for a while as well. It's looking at the balance of the basically the local 911 service boards surpluses. So if you can see, for a number of years, it was fairly steady around $20 million statewide. Over the last 4 years or so, 5 years or so, that's basically doubled and then some. So that's one of the things that we've continued to speak to. Now, this shows both assigned and unassigned surplus. We've stressed making sure that local 911 service boards get their surplus into the assigned category. This is showing both, but it still paints that picture that I've been trying to point out to people, that there's a lot of money sitting in local 911 service boards. I'm not saying anyone's coming to get it. I'm not saying that's even a legal thing to do. I'm just pointing out and spend your money. There's a lot of money sitting there. Hopefully you have a plan for it. But it's difficult to say we don't have money when there's $55 million statewide.
There's two, other than the unassigned, there's two places on the budget to put your dollars. There's assigned, and then what's the other one?
There's assigned and I think reserved.
Or committed or something.
Right.
It would seem to me, and I guess the way that I've approached it, that, you know, the kind of the rainy day fund is kind of assigned, and then other things go into that reserve because we've got a considerable amount we're on the hook for maintenance contracts and things that far surpass our actual balance. I'm wondering if, you know, if you've got, you know, you've got contracts out, really that money is really all spent already, and you're relying on what you bring in. So I'm wondering if most can probably move that out of the assigned and even move it into the committed category, whatever the language is there.
And like I said, I think our message has been to get it into the reserved or the assigned. This is all of it. We didn't have anything to do with putting this together. Department of Management works with iGov to put this together. That's what they're reporting. I'm not saying, you know.
But that includes all of the unspent. Is that all unspent money within? So even if it's in your balance, it's being shown, period.
Correct. Regardless
of which category it's getting.
And I think, you know, you can debate should it be one or the other with the assigned or the reserved or the unassigned, but look at that graph that was steady and now is going up. I think that would be my takeaway as well.
Well, I think that there's plenty of technology either out there that we're not leveraging or that is going to be coming our way that's going to demand these dollars. I'm wondering a couple of things. One, do we as a state need to move forward with implementing some of that technology now? And then the other thing that would come to mind is there a way to add our own graph? You know, that would show that some of these things, but they're reserved. It's committed money that, you know, not necessarily. I mean, obviously it's not going to be on this report, but if it's a little bit of a preemptive strike that shows, hey, you know, these 911 service boards, they're holding on to money, but it's because they are on the hook to pay for a long-term phone contract or a long-term a radio contract or CAD contracts, maintenance agreements, and all that kind of stuff.
Should that question come up, that's easy for me to pull out of the budgets and pull out the difference. So if somehow we start going down that road of needing to defend what is in there, I can pull that data and differentiate between the two. I don't know that we need to do it proactively, or you guys need to do it proactively. The data is available if you want it.
I know what I would think if I was a decision maker and I was looking at that graph. I think it is concerning, and something that we have to control the messaging on as a 911.
Any other thoughts or comments on that slide before I move? Okay. Thank you for all the good work, and for those that do GIS that are here, or for those that don't but want to pass the message along. A lot of good work was done the month of December plus the first week of January. 23 counties met the benchmarks, getting us up to 95 counties. That's the most that ever met the benchmarks the first 6-month period of the year. It's a little touch and go there for a little while within December, but we got to where we needed to be. So a couple things. You can see kind of where we ended up for the year and the 4 counties that didn't meet the benchmarks. You can see where we've been at in previous years. Again, highest that we've ever been at this point. So a couple other things to keep in mind. We are going to start loading that data to begin using it for a GeoMSEG. Comtech has started that process basically in a lab as a dry run, and depending on how it all shakes out, we will begin to implement that. There'll be notifications and emails about that all the way along the way. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I think I saw a couple folks, or at least one from Geocom on the line. A lot of people made our office aware of some delays within the GIS data hub. Geocom is working on some improvements, both in the short term and then as well as the long term, that will get that data and that quality control check turned back a whole lot quicker than you would have experienced the last 6 months. So they're aware of it. I'm very aware of some of the delays. They're working to implement some solutions to speed that up. So we shouldn't experience those delays. We're looking to start implementing that hopefully the beginning of February. So you should see some significant quicker turnaround on getting your data back. There is one training approval for you today. That is the NENA Spring Conference. As a reminder for those that might be new, we do kind of have a standing approval for NENA and APCO spring and fall conferences. The max amount is $5,000, so NENA has requested that full amount. That is, again, kind of a standing approval. With that, I will turn it over to Lynn Warren from Zetron for shared services.
Good morning. Since we last met in December, we've had Johnson County go live December 8th, Monona County went live December 15th, and yesterday Ames PD went live. Next slide. This just gives a snapshot of all the green ones are live, all the yellow ones are being planned and in progress. Next slide. And as always, if you're interested in receiving our monthly or bi-monthly newsletter, just send an email to lynn.warren@zetron.com. My email has changed. Previously it was lwarren, and we'll get you on the subscription list. Any questions? All right, thank you.
If there's no questions for Lynn, that is the end of my report as well, so I would take any questions as well. All right, Mr. Vice Chair, it's all yours.
Thank you, Blake. Thank you, Lynn, for your reports. Item 7 is a training fund request from NENA for their spring conference for $5,000. The distinguished gentleman from Carroll County, would you like to speak to your application?
Yeah, I certainly can. Blake mentioned NENA has a conference along with APCO We do it back to back in the spring and in the fall. The spring conference is usually the bigger conference. It's when we have the vendor fair, and the conferences are not cheap to run, and without the vendors, it would be difficult to put on. So for the vendors that are here that support the conferences, I appreciate it. If you don't support the conferences, get a hold of us, and we'd be happy to have you on board. And then the partnership with the 911 Council has been very valuable as well. It helps us bring in quality speakers and cover the fees for that. And so this time around, we're bringing a gentleman to talk about leadership, especially with the changing world that we live in, and volatility and uncertainty, and the way that PSAP leaders can manage kind of the things that are going on currently in our society. And so we're looking forward to that speaker, and I believe it's going to be a quality conference. So that's it.
Thank you. So the request is for $5,000 for the Iowa chapter of NENA. I'd entertain a motion to approve that request.
Do we need a motion since it's a standing approval?
Oh, probably not. Guess we just write the check. There you go, Jason.
I abstain from that decision as well. That matters.
I mean, I can make the motion if we need one. I'm just wondering, since it's a standing approval, which I think Blake presented it.
Yeah,
It's a standing approval. I normally like to have it run through the council just for one last blessing to make sure.
Okay. So moved.
Is there
Mark?
a second?
Second, Lawrence Hartnett.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. There you go, Jason.
I'll abstain.
Item number 8, report of officers, boards, and standing committees. The first one is the technical advisory. This is a standing agenda item for any comments of interest from our technical and telecommunications partners. Do we have any? If not, how about an update on the Iowa Interoperability Governance Board? Swick Myers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Can you hear me okay out there?
Loud and clear, go ahead.
Excellent, thank you, sir. I want to again extend a big thank you to Sheriff Chad Leonard, Terry McClanahan, and Dallas County for letting us host the meetings here again today. We were in the State Emergency Operations Center the last couple of months, and that was fantastic. We're back here in Dallas County again. I want to extend a thank you out to Dallas County again for hosting us one more time. A couple of quick updates for the group here. We had talked about the information sharing framework project, the CAD to CAD pilot that we're working with CISA on. Holidays kind of intervened with some early on progress, but we did have a chance to go over some draft survey items with them and offer some suggested changes. We're going to have a meeting. It'll be Blake and I and the CISA group again tomorrow, and we'll go over the survey and game plan, and then from there, hopefully the project will officially begin and we'll be putting rubber down on the road. So look for those to come out relatively soon. I think we're going to learn a lot from that. Quick update on the IS6 platform as a whole. We did have another storm roll through in mid-December after our last council meeting. I'm happy to report that the system as a whole survived yet another derecho with essentially no real problems. We had a couple of sites going to site trunking temporarily as the storm rolled directly overhead. That will sometimes happen, but the backup plans kicked in automatically, and there was really no loss or any degradation of services on the RF network as a whole. We did sustain some network damage from that storm as expected. Anytime you see 70 and 80 mile-an-hour winds, you're going to have some things get damaged. Those repairs are in process, and we will hopefully have them done relatively soon. If you're curious as to how many of our sites got hit, every single one of them but one of them was actually in a severe thunderstorm or a tornado warning at one point. And actually one of our sites had 2 tornadoes go basically right around it. So lots of stuff going on with that storm. So good news is that we didn't really have any outages. We had a couple of sites that have some microwave hops that needed to be realigned afterwards. We had one comm center that had another microwave hop that had to be realigned. But other than that, we came out okay. One thing I do want to point out to everybody here is that routine preventative maintenance planning is starting again for calendar year 2022. And actually some maintenance will be ongoing on the network within the greater Des Moines metro area within the next couple of weeks. As that planning commences, I would encourage everybody again to reach out to Scott Richardson just to make sure he has your contact information. We send notifications well in advance of any sites going down for maintenance. Scott's very good about that. And of course, if a site has to be taken offline for maintenance, the goal is to get you an email, several of them actually, and then also to post that on status board and the site status tab so you know exactly when that site will be taken down for maintenance. So just keep that in mind. We'd love to get your contact information updated so that you're aware of what we're doing with the network as well, because this is a shared system. We're all in it together. Update on status board. That MOA was executed last month with Minnesota. We should be receiving their updated source code by the end of this week or early next week. That's also going to come with some new release notes on what they've done and any changes we need to make to be compatible with their stuff. Once we have their source code, I'm going to meet with our developer on this side of the border, and we're going to work on getting our updates applied to it as well. And then we're going to be looking to install that. I think at this point, we could probably have a complete deployment timeline of around 6 months from the time we receive the code. I think that's a conservative schedule because what we're looking at doing is relatively, minor in the grand scheme of things. Quick update on our tactical interoperable communications plan, FOG and EFOG development. Over the last month or so, I sent a bunch of information over to the CISA contractors to get all that information aggregated into what would be the TICP. So I'm hoping to have a working draft of that over the next month or so. A couple of other things to touch on really quick. The West SDR is still deployed in Clinton, and that is considered to be a steady state deployment at this point. We are probably going to be looking at that wrapping up within the next month or so as their recovery process completes. Some updates really quick on some TA and training requests. We have had a lot of interest in COMELs over the last couple of years. Our state-sponsored COMEL that we put in for last year will carry over to this year. The one thing that we will have to work with local agencies on is partnering to deliver an ICS 300, which is a prerequisite for COMEL. So if you are going to be looking at possibly hosting an ICS 300, I would ask to please let us know so that we can kind of notify some of our interested COMEL personnel so that they can sign up for that course and get that taken care of. We're also going to be receiving a communication technician course and an incident tactical dispatcher course. Perhaps the INTD is more of an interest in this group here. We are still looking for locations for all three of those courses as well. One last item we'll have from a CISA TA delivery this year, we will be doing a complete cybersecurity assessment and audit of ISIX. This will be done throughout calendar year 2022. This is going to take a look at the system as a whole, and we're going to end up with a nice report by the time all is said and done with our cybersecurity strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for improvement. So as a whole, we're going to make sure that that network is sound and secure, and things we can do long term to ensure that that continues to be the case. ISIX approvals last month, the Vera Care Flight for level 2, SIPCO for level 2, and Maquoketa Police Department, which includes Jackson County, level 3. They'll be tying in some dispatch concepts. ISIX applications that are up for approval today, Des Moines Area Regional Transit Authority, otherwise known as DART, Des Moines Waterworks, Minnesota Emergency Communications Networks. They're the Interoperability Bureau in Minnesota, so DPS is analog to our north. And Harrison County has an update to their level 4 application. Lots of FirstNet sites went live in the tail end of December. We had one in Guttenberg, Iowa, one near Lewis and Clark State Park, one near Emogene in Essex, one near the Delonga Township, which is just outside of Tumwa, familiar with the area, one in Griswold, Iowa, one near Southeast 37th and 100th Street in Grimes, one near Tabor, Iowa, one near Messina, and then of course one in just east of Des Moines by the Woodland Hills and Vandalia Drive area. Since we are still kind of in this world of COVID as well, we're going to continue to evaluate our ability to meet in person on a month-by-month basis, and we'll be working directly with Blake and company on that. So, Mr. Vice Chair, that is my report for the month. I can go ahead and take any questions.
Any questions for Swick Myers? Thanks, sir. Moving on to item 8C, an update from Homeland Security CISA, Emergency Communications Division. Is Jim Stromberg on?
Good morning. This is Jim Stromberg. The
Go ahead.
Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency continues to remind the larger critical infrastructure community about cyber threats. Of course, that larger community certainly includes emergency communications. One of the tools at your disposal is the stopransomware.gov website. This is a one-stop resource to help you reduce the risk of ransomware and to improve your cyber resiliency. We encourage you to please browse the stopransomware.gov website and to bookmark it in your browser for future access. I'll throw the link into the chat. In late January, the other emergency communications coordinator covering Region 7 and I will provide a refresher course to CISA's Region 7 staff about GETS and WPS tools that enable priority calling over commercial telephone networks. As a reminder, GETS and WPS are available at no cost to public safety and government entities for use when commercial telephone networks are congested. If you have any questions or you'd like to learn more about GETS or WPS, please coordinate with Swick Myers, and he'll get in touch with me, and we'd be happy to set up an informal or a formal meeting to help this body or your individual entities, if you'd like to know more about that. CISA has hired 2 new emergency communications coordinator. One will be filling a long vacant position in Region 1, that's the northeast part of the country, and the other in Region 6, that is the states surrounding Texas and just south of Region 7. And the good news with that is that the next hiring slated should be for Region 7. I still think we're going to be measuring that time frame in months. The Emergency Communications Division of CISA has also solicited applications for communications unit specialists, and we have narrowed down the list. One of those hirings will be covering the central sector, which is basically the central part of the United States, and of course includes Region 7. And finally, there are 6 open work orders for technical assistance in Iowa, and Swick Myers did a very thorough job of covering all of those. And it's always our pleasure to support Iowa through technical assistance and in any way we can to help you achieve the goals of your statewide communications interoperability plan, your SCIP. I'd be happy to take your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Stromberg? Hearing none, thank you, sir. Item 8D, the Chapter 34A Administrative Code Committee Update Review. Are there any recommendations from them? Who's heading that? Is that Tracy Bearden?
It was previously. I don't know if anyone is, since Jason is now the rep for MENA.
Yeah, I don't know who took over for me once I stepped down. So I did discuss it with the chair and with Blake about being a board member, because they can be more of a disinterested party, not wearing the hat of where they are coming from. As a board member, they can wear that board seat hat. So I think someone needs to be reappointed.
Is anyone interested in heading up that committee? Anyone? Okay, well, think about that. If you're interested in any of the council members heading up the committee, if anyone wants involved in that, and Madam Secretary, if you'll add this to the agenda for next month, that I think we need to reinvigorate this committee or determine its need in the future.
Yes, we will.
Thank you. Item 8E is the Baseline Knowledge for 911 Communications Professionals Committee. Who's that?
That was Jamie Robinson.
Are they still on the council?
Never was. He was like a special appointee for that committee.
They online?
Don't think so.
Okay.
This is Lawrence. I don't know if anybody said anything about offering anything in this committee for several months. Should we consider dissolving it?
The Baseline Knowledge one?
Baseline knowledge.
We certainly can. Would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I would move to dissolve that committee.
Is there a second?
I have a question. I guess it'd probably be for Blake and Elliot. Is there has been some work done in that area with the class, things like that. Has that committee ran its useful life, or is it still needed, or what are your guys' thoughts?
I appreciate the question. A lot of the 34A committee, as well as the Baseline Knowledge Committee, those activities are being talked about and addressed through the strategic plan work groups. That being said, at one point, a couple months ago, it wasn't even that long ago, it seemed like the collective council was okay with removing, removing those two items from the agenda. I believe that we might want to wait for the chair to weigh in on that. He seemed to especially want those as agenda items.
I guess I would say, let's certainly put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and between now and then, the members can kind of mull over the needs of that. If there's going to be the strategic planning committee and all the different arms that it has covers a lot of things, plus it brings all those things kind of together with Allie and Blake's efforts. It seems like a really good fit for all of that stuff.
I don't want to speak for the chair, he's not here, but my impression was he wanted a place for somebody to go outside of the state office in order to do have those type of conversations. So I think that was his train of thought of keeping them on the agenda.
Well, I think Lawrence was trying to rescind his motion.
Yeah, I can rescind my motion.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are channels too. APCO and NENA are very active in the legislative arena and have a lobbyist. There's channels for the 911 community to address those, but not all organizations that are represented on the 911 committee are necessarily represented within APCO and NENA. So I can understand that as well. But yeah.
Okay. Did I hear Lawrence? Did you withdraw your motion?
Yes.
Okay. We'll leave these on here and rediscuss next month when Chair Rotter's back. Item 8F is legislative issues. Any report from the legislature yet? 4 days in.
There's nothing 911 related that's been introduced. I know last month we briefly covered the potential language tweak with the PSAP expenditure collection form. Instead of comprehensive costs to direct costs. So that would simplify it and eliminate some of the estimation that has to go on there with determining how much you spend on utilities. I'm expecting that to get introduced at some point. It has not been yet. Other than that, I know nothing concrete, nothing that I've seen, no language.
The governor's state address was it last night?
Tuesday.
There was Tuesday. Is there anything budget-wise, anything that's concerning at all that you're aware of, Blake?
Not related to 911.
Okay, thank you. Item 8G is information sharing by council members, that FCC docket. Blake, was there more from what you introduced earlier on 21-479?
Nothing further from me. I think we just put it on there to make sure that it was fully flushed out from council members to see if the council wanted to do anything specifically as far as comments or any discussion along those lines. Just having the opportunity as part of the agenda.
Were there any comments? I don't remember any when you gave your report. Has anybody had time to think about any response?
It's like there's another opportunity for reply comments, correct? So it's kind of a second bite at the apple. If there's anything concerning that the one way or the other that the council feels strongly about, there's an opportunity there.
Right, so all of those comments become public. The council, Aconina, PSAPs, industry, telcos, other states can look to see what was submitted initially and then basically reply to those comments, either to agree with them, to echo them, or to discount or disagree with what has been offered.
Are you aware, Blake, when I'm not familiar with the comment process for the FCC, is that, I don't know if an organization wants to put a reply comment on multiple comments that have already been made, are they doing those replies to those individual comments? Like one organization wants to reply to 4 different comments, that's 4 submissions?
No, you can do that all as one submission.
Do it one and reference all of those other comments. I think that the council's in a unique position. We have representation for both the 911 community and industry. And I think that council members representing those 2 sides of the house may have different feelings about the FCC, I guess, request proceeding. And I think it's a delicate tightrope for us to walk if we start picking sides on that at the onset. Maybe there would be something within comments that we absolutely really feel strongly about as a group, and that seems like it would be a better opportunity to echo or address those items at that time, I think.
Other thoughts? So, Blake, if anyone does want to provide comments, they can do that directly to the FCC. Is that accurate?
Correct, and I've sent out information on how to do that, where to do that at. I passed along some instructions on logistically which buttons to click along the process. But yes, anyone interested can file those comments. You don't have to do it on behalf of an organization. You don't have to wait for an organization to do it. An individual PSAP could do that if they so chose. An individual telco could do that if they so chose. It's an open proceeding.
Okay. Well, if anyone does have comments, I'd certainly encourage you to submit those to the FCC. Anything further on this item? Okay, item 9, any unfinished business for the council? Item 10, any new business for the council?
This is Lawrence. I think I want to make a comment. I don't know if you can call it business or not, but a few months ago, I brought up an issue, and I think it's still an issue as far as knowing who keeps track of, let me back up a little bit. So we know that there's databases that keep track of which cell towers need to route to which PSAPs. And for each cell carrier, that's different company that keeps track of those databases. And I brought this up a few months ago as far as needing to have a central repository, somebody at least knows who's keeping track of these databases. What happened again yesterday with us and Westcom, as far as I knew, Intrado is still keeping track of US Cellular and AT&T cell towers. I guess that changed in Iowa. And I think the US Cellular keeps track of their own database now, but I don't know for sure. So I still feel like, you know, the state 911 office and Comtech, they should keep track of this information. I still feel like it's a bit, well, there should be some type of workflow in place to where we can know who to ask, you know, who's keeping track of this, so I can reach out to them. We have a cell tower that's, you know, that's sending calls to Polk County, should be coming to Westcom, and I haven't been able to fix that, and it's been several months. So I guess I just wanted to state that. If I'm wrong, then I'm definitely open to being corrected, but I feel like there's still some disconnects here.
I can maybe handle some of that. My throat is full. Hold on. Try to get rid of that. As a business practice, what we are starting to do is request statewide tower audits every year. So we're going to try to do it at the beginning of the year. So we just recently did it, and we're still working through getting usable data. But when I reached out to Intrado, as far as I know, we got all of the AT&T and US Cellular information.
Really?
I mean, there's probably a week or two in between what you and I, timeframes we're talking about, but we can compare notes and see what we got and see if you're using the right contact within Intrado, because that changes, and try to at least solve your initial issue of wanting to fix this tower. So let's see if we can get the right information. But I agree with you. It's a lot of a moving target, and some of that is, it's a little bit, it almost seems sensitive with who the carriers partner with to do their 911 management. So I'm not saying US Cellular or AT&T have left Intrado, but I doubt they send out a press release letting the world know that it's happened. So from experience, yeah, Comtech handles Verizon, US Cellular and AT&T go through Intrado, and then T-Mobile, Sprint do it in-house. And they could change that on, you know, a drop of a dime without telling anyone too. So I'm not saying you're wrong by any means. Let's just compare notes and see if we can at least get the right answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Like how much longer before the cell sectors become a backup routing option, and we're routing by GPS location on the ground?
That's a good question. I don't know that I've heard a definitive time frame, and I think it also depends on carrier. I do believe that T-Mobile Sprint is already introducing some of that. It's called device-based hybrid technology. I don't know that I'm quite smart enough to articulate it in this setting, you know, the necessity of the cell phone sector as it relates to device-based hybrid.
But I mean, you know, essentially, the place we're going with NextGen 911 is that based on the GPS location and
the PSAP boundary.
The PSAP boundary, that is where the calls should be routed. And I think Iowa, the state of Iowa, and the data set is really close to being able to support that. Now, is the technology and the ability of the carriers to support that there yet? I don't know, but
I think some of that is also part of kind of the back-end GIS stuff that we're going to be introducing over the next 12 to 18 months, which is ECRF and LVF, and starting with the GOM seg. And again, I'm not confident or smart enough in this setting to say, does the cell sector go away altogether with those things? But we're starting to make those steps to introduce those that will get more of a precise location using GIS data.
I guess my knee-jerk reaction, I think what you're saying is a huge concern. I think knowing where we go to get problems fixed like that is necessary. I don't know that efforts to make it like a statewide data set, that seems like thinking 5 years ago. 5 years ago would have been an idea. Now we're getting so close to geolocation and next gen 911 being a reality that I think it's a little bit kind of like closing the door after the horses have run out of the barn. So that's my view on it. Knowing who to tap on the shoulder, I think that would be a great thing for the state to be able to have and make available to PSAPs.
To add a little bit to the discussion here, I can tell you that T-Mobile is doing location-based routing, at least here in the metro. That was one of the things we struggled with the transition of Windsor Heights from Polk County to Westcom a few months ago, that we were actually using the mayor's phone. The sectors had all been updated, but his phone apparently was new enough and recent enough that it was using location-based routing, and the underlying shape files for the PSAP boundaries had not been updated. And so his phone for several days after their transition had continued to route to Polk County instead of Westcom. And it wasn't until we were able to finally get somebody at T-Mobile to acknowledge that and figure that out that his phone was location-based routing instead of sector-based routing.
Do you know where they're getting their shape files from, Rob?
We helped them through that data load. T-Mobile reached out to us. We used the boundaries that we had, and Rob, that is absolutely the nail on the head. That boundary never would have gotten updated.
So, okay, so the concern I would have is that a carrier might start to, in some way, employ shape files available through RapidSOS and the boundaries that they have. But RapidSOS is doing boundaries based on political jurisdiction and are not doing boundaries based on PSAP boundaries, which is something I've ran into, right? RapidSOS.
Yeah, and I mean, the theory behind all of this is we start using one single source of truth data set between what ComTech uses, what you all are uploading within the GeoCom database, but then also, like in this case, those streams kind of crossed. We gave T-Mobile the data set, and then that data set changed. We changed all the other shape files and didn't change T-Mobile's, or get with them to let them know they needed to change it.
Has there been any discussions between the state of Iowa and RapidSOS about using state data for their shape files, their PSAP boundaries?
I think so, but there was a flurry of requests for shape files for PSAP boundaries a while back, and I think they were one of them.
Because we really ran into a problem with RapidSOS in the areas of our PSAP that overlap counties, and who they were willing to decide was the authoritative person to give them the information. Our PSAP lost that argument. So it is difficult, I think, to make some people understand. Westcom is a perfect example. Carroll County experiences it as well. That the lines that somebody drew on a map to delineate a political jurisdiction may not be necessarily the lines that a PSAP boundary follows.
So Jason, did you have trouble with RapidSOS? Because I was just looking back in my notes, we provided for the Windsor Heights transition an updated service area boundary shapefile that they took no problem, and Rapid SOS wasn't a big deal at all for us.
We did, and I don't know if that was because a neighboring jurisdiction, it had to do with access to the login. I can't find the words, but PSAP's ability to log in anyone calls in a certain area. And I think our problem was that our PSAP disagreed with a neighboring PSAP, and Rapid SOS didn't. They basically said, well, we're just going to follow the law boundary, and that seems really short-sighted for how to decide, a whole 911 issue. I mean, in our county, in our PSAP, law calls are on the lower end of the calls that we get through 911. So that was kind of the problem that we have with them, is that, our PSAP overlaps neighboring counties, but obviously when it's a law enforcement call, we're transferring that call. But our PSAP boundaries follow our fire district lines. So that was kind of the crux of the dispute.
Yeah, I think that's kind of standard. That's how we do it. We have, with Westcom, we have a couple of fire districts that extend out of our official Westcom boundary. And in those issues, in those instances, they have to just transfer a fire call back to Westcom.
We are the opposite, because our wire line PSAP boundary is within those fire districts as well. So the longstanding traditional PSAP boundary for us is where all those wire lines get transferred to us. And it's kind of a chicken and the egg discussion. Did the fire districts get drawn? The fire districts really got drawn based on where the telephone exchanges were at. And, and so then that's the traditional, since 911 was conceived, PSAP boundary for us. And so it's kind of really, it's just like opposite.
Since your neighbors disagree with that?
The neighbor disagreed about they don't disagree about the history, because that's kind of settled fact, but they disagree with what it should be now. Whether that's a lack of acceptance of the way it's traditionally been done, or a desire to change it. And we just disagreed about that. There's been a couple instances of that. But
that's interesting.
It usually doesn't come like a discussion between us. It just comes through a third party that contacts us and says that we have to agree to this change, and we don't agree. Discussion ensues.
So Lawrence and Blake, can you work on the issue regarding the US Cellular issue right now? I do still believe there's room for improvement in a centralized source for all this information. One of the things we haven't even talked about is the VoIP providers. That was another painful element of Windsor Heights transition for us. So I do agree that there's room for improvement here.
Yep, Lawrence already has the data file.
Okay. I think we're still on number 10, new business. Any other new business?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just got a question if other agencies are comfortable. I'm getting more and more requests from cellular companies to okay addresses that are on residential buildings or invalid addresses. They're not actually shown anywhere on ours. I mean, they're telephone poles or something like that. And I'm just looking see how anybody else is handling that kind of stuff.
Could you explain that a little better, a little more, I mean?
Well, like yesterday or earlier this week, I received a validation from US Cellular that they want me to verify all these addresses, and the addresses, I sent them my GIS people. There was probably 10 or 12 of them. 3 were valid addresses, but they showed like a duplex and a couple residential houses, whether they're putting the towers on houses or on telephone poles. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around how we're going to do that. And I'm starting to see more and more of that.
The only thing I get from cell towers is we built the cell tower and it's route to you or the route to your neighbor. I never had anybody, any cell company ask me for a list of addresses. And
Well, they sent me the, Blake, you get them as well. We have to verify the addresses and looking at the addresses and here is look from US Cellular earlier this week. They're small cell sites, I'm assuming. And when I asked, they said, yeah, they could be on houses or on telephone poles, but they're not. How can I validate the addresses when they don't really have an address other than the homes? But, some of these are on buildings and commercial buildings, some of them are on homes.
Do you guys assign addresses to, not necessarily down to the individual pole level, but like traffic control cabinets and transformer cabinets, things like that?
Yes, they have to apply. Whoever's putting them in has to, if they want an address, they're going to have a telephone or something associated with it, a billing. They can apply through the county. But again, now this list I have from earlier this week has about 60 different requests. Some of them are the same address, probably about 30 different addresses. And they could be an address, put it on top of a building, but some of them are on poles. I'm just trying to figure out how can I verify these addresses if there's no address?
if they're cell towers, they need an address, right?
That's what I'm getting this cellular, the call routing request that I'm supposed to verify the addresses, and they're not valid. Or they are on a home, and we want to be addressing cellular towers with home addresses.
I wonder if they're just using the address of a home in particular, if it's on a pole in front of that home.
And that's possible. Is other agencies having the same issue?
Anyone?
Mark, Jeff in Marion County, yes, we're having the same issue. Sometimes they will do that in an attempt to get us to tell them that it is an incorrect address, where they will immediately turn around and say, well, can you give us the correct address? Sometimes it's an attempt to circumvent our application process, where they have to pay a fee for us to assign an address and mark it and do all the things that we're supposed to do. But I haven't had the problem at the same scale that you have had, but we do typically see them. My experience has been that they're using Google or some other navigation type aid to get them in the area, and then they grab an address close and try and get us to verify it.
Yeah, I don't know if since I'm not the addressing authority, I can't really verify the address. And when I do send it to them, they're like, no, they're not valid address. Do I send them back and say, hey, you need to apply for an address? Has anybody done that?
That is our standard procedure for that circumstance.
Okay. Maybe I talk to my GIS people and let them know it's coming.
On a bigger scale, or I guess on a broader scale, it's become a bigger issue for us because with small cell sites, being a rural area, Windstream likes to put these up out in the middle of nowhere, literally, like you said, on a telephone pole, and then they're wanting an address. In addition to that, most of our utility companies are now wanting addresses assigned for anytime they'll put in an electric meter. And recently, the rural water company is doing the same thing. Before they'll put in a meter pit, they want a specific address assigned to it. So we're doing probably 3 times as many address requests a year for utilities as we are new construction.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else experiencing what Mark is, or comments about that? Okay, does that help, Mark?
I'm gonna go back and tell them they need to contact and get correct addresses from Mercer County. Let them go through the process.
All righty. Any other
Thanks.
new business? You're welcome. Hearing none, we'll move to item 11, travel requests. Are there any? Hearing none. Item 12, any business from the floor from any participant, either in person or online? Hearing none. Item 13, reminder of our next meeting, the second Tuesday of each month following the ISIX, or before the ISIX board meeting. That will be on Thursday, February 10th at 9 a.m. If there's no other business for the council, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Anderson moves.
Mark, I'll second.
Thank you both. Thank you all for participating. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.